What is going on, friends? My name is Colin. Hope everybody's having an outstanding day today. Wow, I just had an awesome solo trip that I did for 2 days. And I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to give you guys some tips that I do when I'm on solo rides. I took some time off last week to go down to Texas, fly down, see my folks, and actually drove back in a car. And then I had a couple days left before I went to work. And I decided, you know what? I need to get out on the bike. And I decided to ride about 5, 6 hours north of Knoxville towards Virginia and do a 2 day solo trip. And I ended up doing a lot of riding on the Blue Ridge Parkway. And if you haven't rode that before, it's a definite on your must ride type roads. It's amazing. It's, if you have rode on it, you know what I'm talking about. Lots of sweepers, very enjoyable ride. You're not going fast, you're just enjoying the views. And then there's a lot of places where you can pull off and get off cities and then gas up and all that stuff. But I just wanted to get away, and I started thinking about this. On most of my rides, and I think a lot of you could probably agree with this, most of the rides you do, even locally, like around your hometown, are short rides or solo. I don't think everybody is doing somebody, riding two up or riding with friends. I would put a percentage, I'd say probably 85 to 90% of my rides when I do ride are solo, and that's good. I mean, I love doing group rides. I do. I thoroughly enjoy them. I love meeting up with some of the fellas and getting a place and, hanging out and telling stories and all that stuff, riding together. But sometimes at the same token, it's great just to do solo rides like I just did. Some just to get out, get away from the house for a while, get away from life in general, and just ride. And that's why I really enjoy doing kind of long distance solo rides. But there's some things that you might want to kind of think about before you do these things, and that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. And a lot of these obviously can be used if you're doing group rides too. I actually did a video a couple months back around the things I've learned over the years with road trips and how to pack and the things you want to have on your bike. And a lot of that information on that video applies to this too. But these are kind of specific more for when you're just doing what I'm doing right now, just touring, just getting out on yourself, doing things. So you got to remember something. When you're going solo, you're by yourself. You're you yourself, me, myself, and Colin, if you want to say it. So there's nobody with you. It's just you. And I do these little things like I have apps on my phone for my family. If they want to know where I'm at. And there's a great app. It's called Life 360 that we use a lot. If you have kids or anything, you can track them. And I'm not saying Big Brother or anything, but it's great for tracking people to see where they're at and how everything's going. So that's one of the apps that I always use because, if you get a loved one, they always say, let me know where you're at, let me know where you're at, let me know where you're at. Text me when you're stopping. And that way they can kind of follow you and making sure you're okay. And with that, there are other things that I've actually never purchased, but I've thought about it. And these are more, and you've heard about them, they're like the trackers, right? So if you have I think Garmin makes one, there's several companies that make them, where you can buy these things and sign up for a subscription. And then when you go on a ride, people can track you that way too, but they've got those features where you have the SOS, and if something happens to you, you can push an SOS button and it sends an alert and tracks your location through global positioning satellites. Whereas this cell phone, the Life 360, will tell you where you're at. You physically have to call, hey, listen, I'm broke down or anything, and then you could be out of cell service. But I'd say 90% of America is covered with cell service, and if you're on the main roads, you're not way off the beaten path. I could see that more if you're doing like off-roading, like adventure type riding. But with like just on the Street Glide Special, when I'm just hitting roads locally, like the Blue Ridge, I think that app is fine. So another thing I do, even though I have that phone, and I do this with group riding too, just in case, it's more like that, and again, more insurance type items. I'll bring a map, and I swear by Butler maps, and I always get maps that in the general area that I'm riding. So, like, I have one for the Mid-Atlantic, I have one for just Tennessee, and I have one for all the local areas I ride, one for Virginia. And it's a great, one, it's great in case something happens to your phone and you lose, cell service, or, you want more detail. But the second thing is those maps by Butler are designed specifically for motorcycle routes. So, and they're great. They're indestructible too. Another thing I'll do before I leave on a trip, I go through and I use Google Maps. I know a lot of people use different mapping software, but I use Google Maps. And what I'll do is I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to be in this general area. I'm say like within 120 miles or something. I'll go through and pin. So I'll put a pin on local dealerships. So like I'll find all the Harley dealerships. Yes, you could go on your GPS or whatever you have on your bike if you have that, and it list all the dealerships and the miles. But I like having that just pinned on the Google, so that way if anything happened, I could look at it and say, okay, this is the closest dealer. And I don't just pick one, I pick multiple. So like right now, I'm heading to an area called Bristol, Virginia. I think I'm about an hour away or something. I'm on Interstate 81 right now. So there's several dealers along the way. There's one in Bristol, and I believe there's one about 30, 40 miles that before Bristol too. And I'll go through and pin all those. And then I'll also look at hotels. Now, normally, I'll be the first to admit, I prefer just riding and then deciding that day where I'm going to get a place to crash. Obviously, if you're moto camping, anything, this all applies the same thing. But if you're doing hotels, I'll do the same thing, and I'll pin some local hotels within 30 to 60 miles of where I think I'm going to end up. And then throughout the day, like if it's 1 o'clock, I'll pull over, and then I'll call the hotel and set up a room for the night if I know I'm going to be ending up here. The biggest reason I do that, honestly, don't do it before, because you never know what's going to happen the day of the ride. Anybody could plan and say, hey, listen, I'm going to go 500 miles today, and I'm going to end up here, but you don't know what's going to happen. You could get in a torrential downpour. You might have to pull over for a while. There could be traffic. So I prefer to do that more of the middle of the day, or even like in the afternoon, where I'm going to be. So that pinning feature, and you could do that with restaurants, you could do that with grocery stores, Starbucks, Dunkin', coffee, because I'm a coffee drinker, so I got to have coffee. So I'll plot all those and get a general idea to kind of give me an idea where I'm going. And those are those things that really, really help me when I'm riding solo, because I guess you could get spontaneous and just pull off and find something, but at the same time, having that peace of mind is great. Look, I changed clothes when you weren't looking. I'm quick. Speaking of that, rain suits, definitely bring one. And all these things obviously apply to not just solo riding, but some key things that I always do if I do a long solo ride. I also bring tools. Torx bits are your friend. Let's put it that way. An air compressor. I started putting that on the bike recently, even though I've had friends in the past when I've done group rides that have had it on it, but why not? You never know. And I also now put a NOCO battery charger, one of those little jumpers, even though it's so rare it's going to happen, just in case your battery dies out there in the middle of nowhere or by the hotel. You don't have to worry about somebody else jumping you. You've got that peace of mind. So ultimately, guys, this. Riding solo is an incredible experience. It really is. You get to discover great roads. You get to get time to yourself, just to kind of think think all about life. Think of the good things. Think of the things you can do better. And that's why I do it. I do it, as we always say, wind therapy. It's true. It's out there and just getting you in the bike in nature and just discovering new things. And that's all I have today. I hope these tips were helpful. Now get out there and ride, be well, and I'll talk to you guys soon.